Welcome to Kepler Conversations. I'm Dr. Scott Postma. Kepler is an online marketplace for classical Christian education. We employ the historic university model and leverage the best available technology so that we can empower families by liberating teachers who make a classical liberal arts education available, accessible, and affordable. Well, in today's conversation, I'm joined by Kepler teacher Wesley Santos. Wesley was born and lives in Brazil. He earned his undergraduate degree in biological science at Sergipe Federal University. He may have to correct me if I said that wrong. He got his master's degree in biological oceanography at the Rio Grande Federal University, which is one of the most prestigious universities in oceanography in Brazil. And after discovering classical Christian education, he migrated from the Brazilian private educational system to online platforms that provide services that are grounded in classical Christian education. He and his wife Sanny homeschool two of their three children, and he plays the violin at church. He loves music. Welcome, Wesley. Really good to have you today on our Kepler Conversations.
Thank you very much, Scott. It's great to be here once again.
Well, I'm super excited for our folks to get to meet you. And one of the things we like to ask our teachers is, who is Wesley Santos outside of the classroom? What do you like to do? And maybe just share a little bit about your life and your interests with our listeners today.
Wow. Well, one of my main interests is you already said about, it is music. So I played the violin since I was 17, and I had the opportunity to play in some experimental orchestra, never professionally, but playing orchestra was one of the best musical experiences of my life. And of course, using this to praise the Lord and in worship at church is also a privilege. But these days I'm playing a little less because my three kids are in the training stage. So I have to be beside my wife to teach them how to behave in church and all of that. So I'm kind of on and off, playing less often with my brothers at church, but still teaching violin at church is another of my interests. Something that I do in parallel. We have a small project at church so that we can teach our brothers and sisters how to play as well. And but besides music, there are other interests as well. I recently started a small beekeeping project with some Brazilian stingless bees, so it's kind of less risky. Yeah, I have a couple little hives in my backyard so that we can see they working and have some honey by the end of the season. And that's a little bit of my day outside teaching.
I love that. Music and beekeeping. That sounds like super fun. And of course, I certainly know I'm a grandparent, and so we often sit with our adult children in churches. We're helping them, teach their kids how to sit still. So I completely understand that situation. But how fun is that, keeping bees and playing music? Well, talk maybe a little bit about your own homeschooling, if you would, or your own education, whether it was homeschooling or public school. And the reason I bring that up, we learned a little bit about your formal education, but some of our teachers have discovered classical education later in life. Some were educated classically, but we've all come to this from a different journey, and we would love to hear about yours.
Well, my personal journey as I was being educated was through formal education. I grew up in an environment where we barely hear anything about homeschooling. It wasn't something with that volume of information or that wasn't something we see quite often here in Brazil while I was being raised and I was taking my formal education. Only as I got older and Really, I think just after I got married, I'll be married for 10 years this year. So only after I got married, we started hearing, and this movement started. At least we started hearing about this movement, especially because we were thinking about having kids. And as me and my wife being both teachers, and knowing I come from the private, I was teaching the private school system. She was in the public school system, and we were both looking at them, and we realized that wasn't what we want for kids. We wanted them to have a better education than the education that or current system was capable of providing. So we started doing some research and learning, and then I ended up knowing classical education, and in parallel I also got to know Kepler. So these two things were two exciting discoveries that I made almost at once. And from that point, we started learning more about it. And the challenges of homeschooling were, at a first glance, were huge for us because we were educated in a matter that if you are a biology teacher, you only teach biology. If you're a math teacher, you only teach math. But now we would be history teachers to our kids, geography, humanities, philosophy, arts, and everything. And we were thinking if we would be suited to such a big task, you know. But I started not just learning about the classical education itself, but hearing from other families that also faced the same challenge, that they were basically saying, yeah, we've been there. So, but it's not as we say here in Brazil, a seven-headed beast. It's not something that you cannot kill. It's not something that hard to accomplish. Of course, it's not easy. It's a challenge. It has been a challenge, but by the grace of God and through the tools we have discovered in classical education, we have been able uh, to teach them well, and we are now grateful to the Lord that we discovered classical education and that He gave us courage to apply that and to face that challenge in teaching or kids. It was one of the best decisions as that we took as a couple, thinking about our kids and the best possible future we can give to them. Classical education was one of the best decisions we had. Sorry, you're muted, Dr.
Yep, sorry about that. Thank you. It's tremendously insightful as you share that story. I was just talking last night with a homeschool mom who had homeschooled all of her children. Now she has grandchildren, and she was saying some of the same things. You know, this for Brazil, you know, this is newer, as you were mentioning, and even in the U.S., the whole homeschool movement is maybe 50 years old, and so there's this sort of fear that families sometimes face that can we do this? I'm only a biology teacher, I'm only a history teacher, but really, historically, education has been, as you said, integrated in that all the subjects are part of life. And it's only in the modern world that we've been kind of trained to think in these segmented subjects, and nobody lives in segmented subjects, right? You don't go live your life that way. So those are just really insightful, and I hope that encourages some of our homeschool families to know that this can be done, and it may seem daunting, but it's certainly not overwhelming or impossible by any stretch of the imagination.
Yes, yes, absolutely. As a good friend of mine says once in a while, specialization is for insects. Have you heard this one?
Yes, yes.
Uh, someone just passed by. Someone just passed by to say hello. What happened, baby?
Here's one of your students.
This is my student to be. This is Elisa. Yeah, mommy just looked the other way, and she is like just running to the room. So, but back to that point, that was this book I was reading from Douglas Wilson. I forgot which one. In that he's talking about classical education, and one of the things he says there is this challenge of giving someone something you never had. How do you give someone something you never had? You have to get it for you first, and that's one of the blessings I've had going through this process together with Kepler and discovering other families and other teachers and opportunities to learn more about classical education. And I started this path that is so amazing. So it was really, really important going through that and having these tools available so that I could educate myself first, learn first about classical education, and then having not just me, but for my wife as well. My wife is also a biologist. He has a master's degree in education, and she just found herself in some. I'm sorry if this word is wrong in English, but alphabetizing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So she loved the process of taking this and doing some good some research on good materials so that we can use which tools would we use to get our kids through this process. So that's some things we are like right now preparing for the here in Brazil the second semester, because we have some while you start the semester in September, we start our semester in January, and we also have a co-op going on that follows this schedule. So we are preparing for the second semester, and we are again going for materials, printing materials, and doing all selection and preparation. Is pretty intense, but it is also very rewarding as we see all these efforts building up and our kids growing and learning. It's amazing.
It is amazing, and like you, I had to come to this place of getting an education myself because I was publicly school educated, and but it's really been grand to have that experience of educating yourself and then watching some of these young people who've been educated classically since they were little, to watch them grow up and become adults and become teachers. And so I really think we're seeing the next generation now coming to fruition that is even going to give the generation following an even better education. But let's talk a little bit about your courses. So you're teaching 3 courses at Kepler this year: a biology course for 9th through 12th grade, a human anatomy and physiology course for 6th through 8th grade, and a marine biology course for 10th through 12th graders. So can you talk a little bit about these courses? What's entailed in them? Why should students take them? Maybe, sell us on these a little bit.
Sure. Well, I like calling my biology course the language of God for life, because that's what biology is. That's what biology is. The Lord created, the Lord provided us 2 means of revelation: His scripture and everything else. So everything else, wherever there is life, biology must be there to explore and to learn more about it. We are called to dominate creation. And how can you dominate over something you don't know? So biology is a tool. Biology is an instrument that the Lord provided us with so that we can learn more about creation, learn more about the living beings, the structure of living beings, how they are made, where they live, how they are integrated with the world around us. And we live in a time where the fundamentals of biology already surpassed the the school environment. We hear every day about climate change in television everywhere. Climate change is everywhere. If you don't know what's going on, what are they talking about? What is climate change? What is a greenhouse effect? How does it affect life? Wait a sec. But I've heard that the Earth is become greener. Isn't that a good thing? How does this fit together? So biology provides you, and these are some of the discussions we have with our students through the school year, making them aware of these connections and ready to think critically about that, to have some substance and to avoid being manipulated, to avoid just following ideas that they don't have a real understanding about. So we provide these tools with them, but also we explore all things related to animals and the microscopic life. We talk about genetics, and well, the biology course is a very broad one. The goal here is to give a little bit of a substance on the main areas of biology. We start our school year talking about what is science and some fundamental questions of science. And we try here to break a barrier that was imposed that science and religion are two separate things. That's absurd. Modern science would never exist if it wasn't for the church and how the church provided an environment in which science could flourish. So science and faith are not two separate things. On the contrary, they must be seen as complementary because as human beings, we are at the same time physical beings but spiritual beings. There are spiritual truths that faith that science can never reach, but also there are the scientific truths that the Bible doesn't talk about. That's not the point. It's not a science textbook. But for we still need to know it. We still need to learn about it. So the scientific method and science are the best tools we have to explore the universe around us. So that's one of our goals, to try to once and for all to break this idea that science and faith are enemies. We then go towards cell biology and we challenge the students and their imagination. I always tell my students, you will be challenged here because we are talking about something that you're never going to see. We have a lot of vocabulary here, so we need imagination so that you can work on and think about mitochondria and all the processes of energy going on. You've heard that sentence that says you can go 40 days without eating, 4 days without drinking, but just 40 seconds without breathing. Why is that? You need to understand the processes inside the mitochondria so that you can really understand what is the problem, where that singular molecule will do its thing and allow the process to go on. It's just a simple function. Oxygen's function is such a simple function, but if you don't have it in 40 seconds, you are pretty much dead. So there are many interesting questions that we answer through the school year and that we try to take our students to think about as we go through biology. The human anatomy and physiology aims to 6th to 8th graders, and here I think the goal is a little bit obvious since the Lord gave us a body. The Lord made us a spiritual being abiding a physical body. So we are simultaneously physical and simultaneously spiritual. So the same way we need to know ourselves spiritually and grow spiritually, we also need to know our bodies. So what are the parts of our bodies? What are the systems of our bodies? How do we take better care of our body? So things related to digestion, diet, and we can talk about why you shouldn't be going so much for sugar. Sugar is not that good for your I know our body loves sugar. Why do your body love sugar? Because that's energy. Sugar means energy, oil means energy, and your body just love it. But if you take too much of it, you start getting fatty tissue. You started getting fat and etc. Knowing and not just knowing the not just knowing the discipline and the terms by themselves, but knowing the application of it, seeing that it's your body, it's literally your body we're talking about. And marine biology is my passion. I know I love everything that I was talking about, but marine biology holds a special place in my heart. All the different environments, usually we stand by the sea, stand by the ocean, and we can only see our line of sight. We can go only through our line of sight, but we have no idea what is going on under the depths. 70% of the world that the Lord created is ocean. So as we go through the main, as in biology we go through the main biomes and etc., we are still limited most of the time to the terrestrial environments. We talk here and there something about marine environments, but we are talking about 70% of our planet. We are talking about a dimension that is not just, vertical, but we go horizontal. And as we go horizontal, as the depth goes, things change dramatically. We have less light, we have cold, we have pressure. Underwater, we sometimes have the marine vents that bring heat and bring nourishment, and somewhere that should be barren is just exploding in life. So marine biology is a passion I have, and a course that I am so delighted to be offering and sharing with my students at Kepler.
That's so fascinating to me to hear you talk about all three of these courses in the way that you have. The language of God, I think, is the term you used. And it reminds me somewhat of what Johannes Kepler had said about in his astronomy is, I was just thinking God's thoughts after him. And when you try to separate sciences, biology in these cases, or anatomy and physiology, from the actual living part of us, like that, the connection, the reality, the practicality of it, and you just study it sort of in this, vacuum. You're just memorizing different. I'm just thinking of my own experience in high school. You're just memorizing terms and things, but to see it actually connected to real life and the way that it functions, the way God wanted us to, it thrills my heart. Well, we're running out of time here, and I would love to unpack, especially talk about marine biology. 70% of our existence, our whole world is underwater. That just blows me away. But maybe you could give us just a nugget, something that would kind of whet our appetite from any of your courses, something that that intrigues you, maybe a misconception that people have that's popular but needs to be corrected? Just maybe just a little something you could leave us with as we wrap up.
Yeah. So I think in biology, I will take biology because the other two courses, they are great, but I think usually biology is the course that the students are looking for because of the grade and all the mandatory credits for completion. And well, from biology, one of our chapters is always very interesting to go through, and that is the chapter on evolution.
Hmm.
And going through evolution, we have this misconception that evolution is something that came directly from the book of the devil. That evolution is something that doesn't exist at all. That Darwin was a servant of the devil that aimed to destroy the church, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Darwin was a man of his time. As we go through the Europe at that time, what do we see? In Europe that is going further and further from the Lord, they were just looking for an excuse, and evolution bring them the excuse. But ought evolution really saying that the the Lord isn't the creator, in the means that what did Darwin really demonstrated? I don't like to use the word proving, but what he demonstrated, was he completely wrong? And the answer is no. He displayed and he demonstrated natural selection as being an effective way through which nature chooses its path. And here I am advocating for evolution. But what is the point? What is the key here? What is the aspect in which we will disagree? What is evolution's God? Evolution's God is time, or an excuse for evolution. So we learn that the processes that Darwin described, they were not wrong. The means of natural selection, the observations he made deserve some credit. And as the plunderers of Egypt, we can use it to show how God created all things in life with potential to diversify. So God did not necessarily create lions, tigers, and leopards. He could have created an original feline that could diverge through these groups. And that would not at all take his creativity and most importantly what he reveals to us in Genesis 1. So this, I think, is one of the most interesting points we see and polemic points we see through the school year. That's a nugget that can only be unpacked and really polished if you come to a biology course.
I absolutely love that nugget, and I appreciate you sharing that. To our audience, I hope you'll come check this out. Wesley is a committed Christian, and yet at the same time a man of science, and so much of the polemic, and you used the word polemic earlier, if you heard him talk about this, that so much that's happening in even in Christianity, in like so American Christianity and parts of it, and in the scientific world wants to play like these things are in some way counterintuitive to each other or mutually exclusive in some cases. And yet we have a God who is a wonderful creator. And so come to biology, come check this out, have this fabulous conversation. And of course, so much more than that. All of Wesley's courses will be in a link in our show notes, as well as his biography. You get to know him better. Wesley, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
God bless you.